Greetings, y'all. This is Casabez Makama, live from Meridian World Studios in Hammond, Indiana. I'm here with Baba Nubian Malik of the Black Survival Network and Julian and Kenya from DuSable City Ancestral Winery and Vineyards. We have a special broadcast here for you today. We're going to be talking about survival issues in today's uncertain and troubled times. Focus on food sovereignty and emergency survival situations. Before we get into our conversation today, we do have a few current events that we're going to talk about. Starting from around the same time we had our last broadcast last Monday, Donald Trump was talking about the looting that was happening, and he said that there was a potential that he would have to use the military to intervene in local situations in case of continued unrest. He was also, as many people are aware, saying that the police and the law enforcement should dominate the streets to stop the violent protests. Some people mistakenly took that as he had declared martial law. I want to basically first say that that's not the case at all. He said if there was a continued unrest, then that is a solution that he would take. But he did not declare martial law at that time. So technically, we've been actually under some form of martial law for the last 2 or 3 months since the coronavirus shutdown happened. So we have had the activation of the National Guard on the state level for the last few months. And now the deployment of local National Guard troops in different states, such as where we are in the Chicago area, has also taken place. So that was before Trump even made this statement. However, a national state of emergency where the federal military, the United States military, would be deployed hasn't happened. I wanted to make this note quickly because we have a lot to talk about in our conversation later. But there has been a trend that I've noticed lately of a kind of a reactionary attitude or approach towards current events and reacting to everything that people say. I've seen people saying that really the problem is Trump. Trump has not started the problem. He may be part of the problem, and as the United States president, his job is to be part of the problem. Let's be clear on this. Let's be clear on what the U.S. president stands for and what he is, because he's not here for justice for all. He's here for, whatever agenda, political agenda is at hand. And so we shouldn't be expecting much different from that. However, I think it's important to be discerning. Here's the beginning of that same speech where he was threatening to send in the federal troops. We're going to play some of that.
Thank you very much. My fellow Americans, my first and highest duty as president is to defend our great country and the American people. I swore
Is there a way to turn it up?
Laws of our nation, and that is exactly what I will do. All Americans were rightly sickened and revolted by the brutal death of George Floyd. My administration is fully committed that for George and his family, justice will be served. He will not have died in vain. But we cannot allow the righteous cries and peaceful protesters to be drowned out by an angry mob. The biggest victims of the rioting are peace-loving citizens in our poor communities. And as their president, I will fight to keep them safe. I will fight to protect you. I am your president of law and order and an ally of all peaceful protesters. But in recent days, our nation has been gripped by professional anarchists violent mobs, arsonists, looters, criminals, rioters, Antifa, and others. A number of state and local governments have failed to take necessary action to safeguard their residents. Innocent people have been savagely beaten, like the young man in Dallas, Texas, who was left dying on the street, or the woman in upstate New York viciously attacked by dangerous thugs. Small business owners have seen their dreams utterly destroyed. New York's finest have been hit in the face with bricks. Brave nurses who have battled the virus are afraid to leave their homes. A police precinct has been overrun here in the nation's capital. The Lincoln Memorial and the World War II Memorial have been vandalized. One of our most historic churches was set ablaze. A federal officer in California, an African American enforcement hero, was shot and killed. These are not acts of peaceful protest. These are acts of domestic terror.
Okay, so again, nobody will. I mean, I will not be the one to say that I'm advocating for military in the streets. However, sometimes our anger can become misdirected, and my point here is saying we should be clear on what we're putting our energy towards. If we are saying, like, now, many people are putting this energy towards a new, election year. We're trying to get Trump out, trying to get Biden in, or many people are on that page. Is that really the battle to fight right now? Do we really think that the Democratic Party will be the answer for the problems that we're facing at this time? Here's a response from President, or then President Barack Obama in a similar situation, following the acquittal of the cop killer of Michael Brown in Ferguson.
Good evening, everybody. As all of you know, a few minutes ago, the grand jury deliberating the death of Michael Brown issued its decision. It's now come that either way was going to be subject of intense disagreement, not only in Ferguson, but across America. So I just want to say a few words suggesting how we might move forward. A nation built on the rule of law. And so we need to accept that this decision was the grand jury's to make.
In this case, we have, Barack Obama saying we should accept the decision to acquit Michael Brown, killer. Not saying that people should take to the streets and tear up, everything. Not saying that he, understands everybody, anger, and even throughout the video, not even addressing the issue of police brutality and police killing Black people, but instead the issue he addresses is the distrust of the police by Black people because of some unfortunate incidents, which he didn't really get into details. And at the time, of course, we know Joe Biden was the president. Do we really think that Joe Biden is the answer to these problems? Personally, I don't think so. We're going to move forward and continue with the Democratic, what we could call maybe pandering to the current events to try to get a leg up on the situation and push. And we've seen a lot of this in the past few months, whether it be with these recent protests over the killing of George Floyd, or whether the coronavirus, that the well-being of human beings has taken a backseat to politics, partisan politics between the Republican and Democratic sides. Recently now, the Democratic Party has endorsed a bill in the House of Representatives to, I I guess, put some checks and balances for police, which are being demanded by, of course, people across the nation and have been for years. They started their introduction of this bill with a symbolic gesture.
We gather in honor of those Americans and so many others. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Botham Jean, Terrence Crucher, Jordan Davis, Oscar Grant, Philando Castile, Freddie Gray, Walter Scott, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin. Any other names members wish?
Sean Bell, Jordan Davis, Freddie Gray, Alphon Taylor.
You see how long it was to have that knee on his neck.
So the Democrats symbolically knelt for 9 minutes. And my question is whether that 9-minute kneeling for 9 minutes is symbolic of, Colin Kaepernick's protest of the U.S. national anthem. Because if it was, why didn't they play the national anthem while they took a knee? Or was it symbolic of the knee that the system is putting on the necks of Black people still in this country? Either way, while it's cute that they're wearing kente cloth around their necks, let's just be clear that this is the same party that brought us the prison bill from President Clinton, the same party that endorsed the killing of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya under Barack Obama, and many other problems that we've seen in the world. It hasn't been much that's changed between George W. Bush to Barack Obama to now President Trump. So what are we expecting really with Joe Biden? Let me open it up. Do any of the other guests want to comment on anything before we move to the next clip?
Just very quick. I think that it's important that we always remember as African people, in the same way that Dr. John Henry Clark tells us that we have no friends at the cross or the crescent. As African people, we have no friends, as Malcolm reminded us, between the Democrat and the Republican, the Southern, as Malcolm called them, cracker, and the Northern cracker. And so I think that for African people, we need to be able to look at ourselves and see our solutions versus looking outside of ourselves and seeking solutions.
Thank you very much, Baba. We will definitely be talking more about that in just a moment. And
I would add to that. You asked a lot of questions in that moment. I mean, really, a lot of things were going through my head. I think, first of all, we kind of talked about the question of, the players in all of this, and like my strategy to survive has been to really make sure that my work has a purpose. I mean, and we commonly understand that here in this group. But when you have a purpose, you really kind of do not fall victim to the propaganda.
mm-hmm.
So I think that's, I would share that. Also, with regards to the looting and people kind of demonizing the young people. Here in Chicago, it was really interesting because when you really pull back the layers on the whole situation, it seems that the young people were really a more of a pawn in a much more sophisticated strategy. Because here in Chicago, our Home Depots were hit, our currency exchanges were hit. So, that isn't the work of, some young teenagers, just gallivanting around and trying. So I think it's kind of sad that also we're all falling victim again, not really knowing all the truths and all the players that are going into it, and we're just accepting. We can't accept what they're saying. About the children and so much as understanding that it is also a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a distraction.
Well, I'll make mine quick. And I think we're going to talk about this later, though. In that, I think it's easy, to put a group of people off balance when they don't have a plan for themselves. It's like two men going in the ring. One has a boxing plan, a fight plan. The other one is kind of surprised that he's in the fight. Not prepared at all. Like, oh, he just woke up, man. What am I gonna do? So I think that's the position that we're in, really, as a group. So we kind of see all of these things happening, and we find ourselves in a reactive frame of mind too much. So yeah, later I have much more to say about that later. When we're talking about planning and going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We end up in a reactionary situation a lot of times, and I really wanted to say more on that side of things, but I don't want to take too much time, to be honest. Right now, the next clip we're going to talk about is recently the Minneapolis Police Department, or let's say the Minneapolis City Council, announced the intent to disband the police department. So if I'm understanding this right, when they say disband the police department, that means that they will no longer have a police department at all, like police cars, police uniforms, badge numbers, and all this. I'm interested to see how this plays out. I'm interested to see first if they actually follow through with this, and if so, how it will play out in the long term. Well, short term and long term, what actually will happen. Because honestly, we know that the police are not really there to protect and serve the community the way they say they do, but at the same time, there is some degree of order that that people depend on them for, based on the way the society is set up. So without the police, it'd be interesting to see how things evolve and how people keep order amongst each other in their communities. I think that it's possible, and I think that it's a very, people have had to function that way for many, many thousands of years. So I don't doubt that it's possible, but is it possible in a society like the one we're in? That's what I'll be waiting to find out. Lastly, and as Sister Kenya was just talking about, that the Black youth have been kind of blamed as the ones doing the rioting and looting. However, there's a lot of others involved in that. Last week we were showing videos of white looters, or people talking about how most of the looters were white, especially the ones smashing downtown Chicago and hey, the first ones really rioting and looting in most of the locations where a lot of damage was done were not Black youth. But here's a little bit of a clip from the Real News Network regarding agent provocateurs.
This is Jacqueline Lufman with the Real News Network. Earlier this week, St. Paul, Minnesota Mayor Melvin Carter had to walk back his earlier claims that, quote, every single person who was arrested Friday night from protests over the killing of George Floyd was from out of state. The state's governor, Tim Walz, also had to apologize for saying that as many as 80% of those destroying property in the cities were not locals, and many also may be foreign actors. MSNBC's host Joyanne Reed repeated and expounded on the foreign influence claim on Twitter, and even Susan Rice ran with it, again raising the specter of the Russians making the blacks do bad things. But instead of not voting or voting for Trump, apparently what they made us do last time, the Russians are making Black people riot and loot. Now, as ridiculous as that might sound, there is some sketchy business going on at some of these protests. Mysterious, all Black clad white window smashers with umbrellas in Minneapolis, mysterious, all Black clad white women tagging businesses with Black Lives Matter and being run off by an actual Black woman protester for their trouble in another city, mysterious pallets of bricks allegedly showing up on city streets. Is it Antifa? Is it white supremacists? Is it the police? Whoever is behind these curious actions, the issue of agent provocateurs is real and is an ever-present challenge for organizations, movements, and protests. But first, we have to understand what we're talking about. An agent provocateur is a person who commits or acts to entice another person to commit an illegal or rash act, or falsely implicate them in partaking in an illegal act. Now, this is done to ruin the reputation or entice legal action against the target or a group they belong to. We have to be clear. There is a long history of agent provocateurs interfering in movements and protests, smearing activists and ruining people's and organizations' lives and reputations, and worse.
Good to hear you, bro.
Thank you. That's our last video for today. We're going to get into our conversation now. Does anyone have a comment to make on the video? That the full video, by the way, can be seen on therealnewsnetwork.com.
What were some of your thoughts, Casabez, about it?
About the video, it just shows that, you know, and this is the case I find with a lot of what we see in the mainstream with the news, and now somehow they've managed to rig social media so that you know, people will see what you know, the mainstream wants to promote at a given time. That there seems to generally be a bigger agenda at hand than what's, you know, seen on the surface. I'm hearing now George Soros' name thrown around as being one of the big financiers of some of these protesters or rioters or what have you. But I don't really have an answer as to really what the agenda is and who's behind it. But there does appear to be some kind of agenda being played out. And we should be very careful, once again, not to be caught up on the butt end of another conspiracy.
I agree.
Right. Yep. So if I may, I'm sorry, Mama, go ahead. What?
I was just saying, there it is.
Yeah. I think it's important that we remember the lesson coming out of the 60s and 70s as we deal with the COINTELPRO in general and FBI, CIA, intelligence community infiltration of black organizations, particularly FBI dealing with as early as Marcus Garvey. Uh, a lot of people may or may not be aware, but the very first job that J. Edgar Hoover got was to disrupt the UNIA. And that then became the official start of what is now known as the FBI. Prior to that, they was called something else. And Hoover was in, but anyway, so from that point up into the Panthers and the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement of the 60s and early 70s, there was a lot of things that was unfolding that we had never seen before. These provocateurs, these Dear Urban letters. Hey, you know, Nubian and your wife works together a lot. I ain't saying nothing, man, but I seen them check into the hotel. You know, I don't want to tell you who I am and all the rest of that, right? And so all of that was new. And so we didn't really have the experience or the ability to really properly analyze it and address it. And so I appreciate your warning and examining this new piece now, this mass media piece, this social media piece, because it's so prominent in our lives and then for so many people, it's their only source of information in the way that they're manipulating this stuff now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so we can expect at some point for people to be sending emails from emails. Brother, I did not send that email. Trust me, I did not send that. Well, it came from your box. The only way it came from your box is that you sent it. We don't control those mechanisms. You know what I'm saying? We only utilize them. And so
we're already seeing that with people sending bogus messages from hacked Facebook accounts. That's been going on for years now.
There you go. That's exactly right. And so in our inability, if you will, not to know that those things happen, we take everything for face value. It happened, it came from your account, you did it, right? And so regardless of what I say, you did it because your account, your you know how we say follow the paper, your account can't lie. And so I think, again, per your warning, that we have to be very aware of the possibility of this, and not even a possibility. Man, these people is going to use everything at their disposal to disrupt what did the original counterintelligence program say? To stop the Messiah that could electrify and unify the black militant masses or any masses at that point. You know what I'm saying? At this point. And so I think that we have to really be mature enough to have the foresight of understanding that everything that come across social media, we can't buy into it, man. Whether it's good for us or bad for us, we can't buy into it. And we have to develop a method of being from state to state, city to city, to confirm these things that's coming out of these different places. We have to build the capacity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of what what I would like to do with this Meridian World News is to have it be an outlet where we can have sources from different locations reporting in on what they're actually witnessing and observing. Because right now we don't have anything close to that.
Vetted sources, brothers and sisters that's on the ground that we know and that we trust.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to mention too, we bear some of the burden of responsibility. I see a lot of times people posting and reposting stuff based on a tagline or a headline without really having watched the video or read the article, just reposting stuff and kind of sharing an opinion about things that without really knowing what they're sharing, and then just the overall lack of critical thinking or the tendency of people to kind of fall into camps of, just agreeing with what the mainstream narrative is saying. Perfect case in point is what's happening now. 2 weeks ago, there was no news besides coronavirus. There was nobody was talking about anything else. I mean, maybe at that time, I think the brother from Minneapolis had been killed. We had started to see um, the brother from, I forgot where he's from, Arbery, who got killed by those white vigilantes. We saw something about that white lady calling the police on the black man in Central Park. We saw some other stuff from I think cops killing black people. I saw it's been like a rash of reported, killings of black people or these kind of things happening. A rash of reportings over the last month. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Did any of you guys notice that besides me? That all of a sudden we just saw a whole bunch of stuff over the past maybe 3 or 4 weeks, at least about 4 or 5 instances. And all of this during the lockdown situation. And I was noticing it and I was thinking like, man, something's up right now because, we only hear about these cop killings sometimes. We don't hear about it all the time. But it doesn't mean that it's not happening. Like this stuff has always been going on. It hasn't really stopped. And I'm sure if we looked up and saw, we could find something from November and December and January and different stuff that we didn't hear about.
Absolutely.
And then we hear stuff with George Floyd. All of a sudden, the world is on fire as a result. And then all these protests and stuff. And from if you notice the coronavirus, the ones who are protesting the lockdowns was the right-wing conservatives. The ones who are saying stay your ass at home, protect our grandparents. You might be asymptomatic. Don't go outside. Wear your mask. All of that was the liberal left. But now, after George Floyd, you saw the liberal left take a complete turn, and nobody is now saying stay inside. There's, people are going out and protest, and nobody is saying, hey, what about coronavirus? It's still out there, y'all. You see? So it's like people can so easily become distracted and kind of, turn one way or another. And, it's a perfect example of what we're just seeing right now.
I agree.
Yeah, that was a clear-cut case of look left, now look right. You know what I'm saying? And people followed that. But just real quick, Barbara, per the information that's coming out of black people being killed by white officers and white vigilantes, if we will, or white citizens on patrol or whatever they call themselves. I think that we have to also give ourselves credit for making sure that we have now at least built the capacity to get that out to our people. We are utilizing social media for that. And so whereas a brother used to be killed in Georgia while he was jogging, you know what I'm saying? Even though one of the assailants was the individual who filmed it. But a video like that now, we catch it and we pass it on and we move with it versus sitting on it. You know what I'm saying? And so to our credit, under our capacity to be able to, to build and sustain things, I think that it's a good thing that when we get a hold to a video, we don't sit on it and we share the pain of that family with the entire black world, and there's other parts to that, but I'll leave that there because I suspect that it'll come up as we move back into those other things that you have for us to talk about.
Sure. And definitely point well taken, Baba. And, we do have the capacity through social media to share a lot of important information. I'm just trying to advocate for us being responsible in how we do it. And and also, again, not just purely reactionary, but thinking of solutions and how we can make progress. And with that in mind, we're a little over half of our time for the show. So I want to get into some of the survival issues that we've been talking about. So I just wanted to say a little bit more about what our guests here today have been working on. Baba Nubian for you can let me know how many years. But he's been at the forefront of an organization called Black Survival Network, where they do what's called a 48-hour emergency preparedness program, which I've taken part in a couple of times. And it's been, a great experience in kind of how to survive outdoors in an emergency situation. So there's many skills that are needed for those type of situations, which they teach, and they have a program which you can kind of continue and build your knowledge, which he'll be able to talk more about that. Also, Kenyon and Julian from DuSable City Ancestral Winery and Vineyards, but in addition to just winery or wine making, they also have been one of the leaders in Chicago in urban agriculture. And at this time, because after coronavirus happened and you saw that people were buying up a lot of different food in the grocery stores, and then in other cases, meat supply plants were being shut down, and it was starting to look like there was a possibility of a food shortage. Then most recently, after the looting, there was another, real food shortage in the city of Chicago and other places where, grocery stores are no longer open because they have, their whole stock has been stolen, and infrastructure inside the stores have been damaged or destroyed. So what I've been observing is that there's a real potential. I've been observing this for years, but it really is brought to the forefront of my mind, really the crucial importance of having some higher level of self-sufficiency and preparedness for worst case scenario situations. So I just wanted to open up the floor to any of you who want to speak on the current environment and what's going on, and how you are working to address it.
Well, coming from my angle, as you mentioned, we've been doing urban agriculture for the last 12 years or so. And I think it's been such a blessing that we have, us and others, because a lot of infrastructure has been built really over the years to really service, at least a nice portion of our people in this specific time right now, as Kenyon was mentioning earlier. So there's a lot of Black farming organizations that are mature and have been around long enough really to know how to handle picking up, 500 to 1,000 new people and making sure they get supplied with what they need. And it's particularly interesting that really those 500 to 1,000 people are, for the most part, going to be from the population amongst us who are the most aware. That leads to another point that we've all been speaking to, and that I think, and I don't want to sound harsh, but sometimes life is. I think the moment we're in, it's almost too late for our brothers and sisters that really are still stuck in the Negro quote unquote mindset. And for us that have a consciousness and awareness as to what's happening, need to be growing greater bonds of interdependency in this moment to be able to survive, honestly. So this program that was mentioned earlier is beautiful. I think we got another train. I think that what Brother Nubian does is absolutely something that more of us need to link up and get involved with. But I think that, we can really kind of think out of the box also. Like oftentimes I ask myself, man, what should our people be doing? What can we come up with, like a 3-step plan, 4 or 5-step plan? Simple one, I'm thinking, and I'm gonna be quick. Why not just as a small mass group start doing susus, and susus to a specific end. I know, and I don't want to isolate myself. We've been talking about repatriating. So, our focus in, short term really is to try to build up enough capital to make their transition a smooth one, and while carrying over the business that we have so we can do the same things that we're doing here there. But some coordination, capital is required, and we really, people of the same mind could get to the finish line a lot quicker if we're working in collaborative groups. So the SUSU was one for that particular interest.
Julian,
Yeah.
for our viewers who may not be familiar with what a SUSU is, can you explain briefly?
I don't know, Baba. I would love to hear you explain it, because you are a great resource of wisdom in our community. So I want to step out of your way on this one.
Well, I haven't actively participated in one, but I have been, in conversations about, the benefits of doing it, and I would love to participate. So my knowledge is a little limited too, but my understanding is that a group of people get together. Everyone, if it's $20, everyone says, I'm going to donate $20 a month. And every month, the $20, if it's us in the group, the $80 would go to maybe first Baba Nubian, the next month it'll go to Julian, then the next month it'll go to Kenya, the next month it'll go to me. So it would go like that in a circle. So, but as Brother Julian, you're mentioning, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying with the purpose. So it's not like you just use that money for anything, but that money is specifically for something, some kind of a need or some kind of a program that the group has agreed on.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
And yes, that's absolutely right. And
there's a great resource in our community who really is actively pursuing those kinds of banking and economic establishments. Just to quickly share, Baba Mike Tekin from the Cola Nut Collaborative has a really dynamic program, and someone was recently saying how this Baba, he's been working on for years, and how he's a man ahead of his time, but we have to start recognizing those kinds of resources earlier on. I think is what the lesson we need to learn from that. But
yeah, I want to. That's one thing, and then secondly, and then I'll drop the mic. Is that we were speaking to the importance of social media, okay, and how our people have been utilizing it, I guess, to our political advantage. But I think there's areas that we haven't been using it, right? So there's a contingent of us that has interest in repatriating, and I see that growing really as time passes, especially recently. Why not organize social media campaigns where we're putting political pressure on leaders in particular countries in Africa to proceed in putting together appropriate repatriation programs for us that are interested, Then I'm saying, so I'm giving those quick examples, they may work, they may not. I think they're decent, but at least, I think we should be thinking along the lines of how can we be strategic and have a simple plan that really works to our advantage, and then we're not just kind of sitting around as spectators hoping that we don't get caught up in the dragnet,
And I think that's a real quick kind of insight into why we have the business that we do. That's kind of like where our psychology behind our business really is rooted. So with that, Baba Nubian.
Real quick, before you go, I just wanted to mention something, because you mentioned repatriation, and again, it's something that is a big conversation that needs to be had. amongst Black people, the so-called what they're now calling. There's a movement called ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, right? It's totally taken the African out of Black people, Black Americans. It's just American descendants of slavery, as if our history started there. But really, our history goes back to Africa. If we're really trying to fix our situation, if we're really seeing that this government has no interest in our well-being, despite the pandering now that's going on by the Democratic Party, our solution should be getting back home, reconnecting with home, and if not moving there permanently, at least having a base there where we can really be functioning out of as our home base. I wanted to quickly plug sister named Sister Ya from the Sankofa Repatriation Assistance Program. Also called Sankofa, the website sankofarepat.org, but she's got a program she's putting together for people to commit to monthly donations and trying to get, up to about $1 million a month coming in from, as little as maybe $1 donations monthly, which can then be shared amongst a group of people who would have to apply to move to Africa, and they would provide assistance with building them a sustainable business in Africa, so that they're not only just to get people to move there, but the other problem is that when you move there, you still need a source of income, and that's really the biggest handicap that a lot of people are having right now when it comes to repatriation. So I wanted to plug her and her program, and I think she's expanded to be also working with another group of people or some more other groups for that program, because one thing I know is it's not really smart to be just relying on the government for assistance with this. We need to collectively put our resources together to support these type of movements.
Now I'll tell you what an elder told me, and I'm gonna try to be quick. Just put a little fire out there. All right. He works on the markets. He's a Forex trader. And he told me that because of the particular line of events related to COVID, how that came now, kind of surprised a lot of people that have money. So it slowed the economy down for everyone. Now, a lot of financial experts predict that the U.S. economy is really on an unavoidable course towards falling apart. And the estimate is in coordination again with COVID. So COVID's supposed to come back around in the wintertime. All right, that's going to strike the economy again. Elder told me that the people that did not have a chance to really kind of get themselves set up and squared away and have options when things constrict, this is the time that they're taking to do so. So, I mean, that's kind of really kind of lit a fire underneath my behind, because I understand enough history about the white boy is when he gets to the point where his back is against the wall is when he's at his worst, and that's when you see crazy mass killings, and I know that's what's to come, and we're really first up on the chocolate block when it comes to that, and not prepared, not even thinking about it really, most of us. So, I don't think ultimately, if I was stuck here, I would be ultimately disappointed, but I would like not to be in that position, honestly.
Yeah, me and my family were supposed to be in Africa right now for on a one-way ticket, and our flight was scheduled for last month, so we missed that. We missed that boat. We were about 2 months too late on our program, and now we're here. So, hoping at least things will ease up a little bit so we can get up out of here before it gets worse. But we'll see. I'm also interested to see with COVID after the next couple weeks, if if COVID is what they say it is, we should definitely be seeing a big spike in cases, but also deaths within the next week to 2 weeks. And if that doesn't happen, some people are going to have to answer some questions. If not, I don't know why we should still be, treating this like a plague. But I'm going to digress here. Baba Nubian, what's your take on current events and what we should do about it?
Right. So, per survivalism, and for anybody that's listening, I want to just encourage them to grab a piece of paper and a pen. I want to just get some emails out shortly, so just be ready for that. Per survivalism, if you will, first of all, let me just say that survivalism is not the ultimate state that we want to live in, right, or that we want to be in. Survivalism is that moment in time where we make sure that we stay alive until things return to normal, right? So whatever the heaven that may mean. And so we don't want to survive. As African people, we actually want to thrive. That's what all humans want to do. They want to thrive, not survive. So the Outdoor Leadership Skills Project was created, I want to say, in 1972. And we have been consistently doing training for the African community in readiness and preparedness. The simple thing for us as African people, why this was created by Baba Hannibal and Brother Nick Howard, whose African name I cannot recall, but Brother Nick Howard, was simply because we understood what you just said, Brother Julian, that when the white man finds himself not being able to feed his own children, it's going to be some serious challenges. And we're going to be the first ones to go. And history have showed us that over and over again. When them people came home from World War I and their jobs wasn't there, and because they had them brought the black people up from the South to fill the jobs in the North, those white people in the North and South returning with no jobs and no way of making a living for themselves, family took to the battlefields. And this was the history behind what they called the Red Summer of 1919. Even though as African people, we understand that we have been in a hostile relationship with these people since, 1619 as the official date that they use, right? So I think that we need to keep that in mind first. And so when we find African people who is surprised or caught off guard with food, supplies, whatever those other supplies is, firearms training, survival training, and all of those different things, we understand that we have actually found a group of African people or an individual of African descent that haven't been in tune with reality for a very long time, because you cannot live around these people and not understand that there's always a moment, just a single moment, that this can turn from day to night, if you will, for us. You know what I'm saying? And COVID this time was one of those things, and so it brought on a lot of things, and it increased a lot of people's concern and attention to the possibilities of things to take place. Thank you. And so again, why haven't I? And just let me say this real quick for a perfect and beautiful example. Most people have seen the movie Rosewood. And in the movie Rosewood, the brother go and talk to the white guy who was bothering one of his nieces or something, not the one that had the relationship inside the store. When he went to him and seen him with his shotgun broken down over his shoulder and said, "I just want you to know, don't be messing with mine, and we won't be messing with yours." If you remember that scene, then that lets you know that automatically there was some hostility inside and around that community. However, when the lie had been told that the black man raped a white woman and then the white folk lost their mind and went to killing white people, we found that even though that brother understood that he lived in a hostile state, when it all went down, he still had to go to somebody else to buy additional shells. That's unacceptable. You cannot live in a condition of hostility and not maintain a constant state of readiness. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. And so as an African people, we have to accept the fact that this is our reality. in that we have to get real serious about our state of readiness and our state of preparedness. And we have to constantly and always maintain that state of readiness and that state of preparedness. And the one thing that you can do is to make sure that you control your immediate space. You may not be able to control all space around you. You know what I'm saying? And based on those relationships that I heard the samples talking about and you talking about, of making sure that we're in a position to sustain and support each other, based on those relationships that you're able to build and maintain, you control your immediate space. You know what I'm saying? You can't control the rest of the world. You cannot. We don't have that capacity, but you can and you must control your immediate space. And so, again, firearms. I'm a firearms instructor. Been doing it since 1991 or 92. We used to have firearms training as a part of our training with the Black Survival Network. Because of the land that we use, they grow food on their land. They had opted for us not to do any firearms training, respectively. And so, but now I'm getting phone calls from people all over. Man, are you still doing firearms training? Are you still teaching concealed carry? Yes, I am. But the truth of the matter is, you knew you needed this even before then, and you think you have to wait on this to happen for you to then get serious about this. And so this is the type of situation that we find ourselves in as Black people. Y2K, and I will close with this prior to giving you these email addresses. Y2K, had Y2K hit, regardless of if it was real or not, but had it hit, per what Brother Julian was saying, how when it come back around, how bad it's going to be inside of our communities, that would have been a hot mess. People would have been dying by the hundreds of thousands just because of lack of preparedness. And then, of course, those that took to the streets to take from those that had properly prepared but wasn't able to camouflage their havings, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And so I just want to give out two quick emails. The first one is these 48-hour preparedness training courses, and that's the BSN Chicago, B as in Black, S as in survival, N as in network, and then the word Chicago at yahoo.com. And then my own business for firearms training, Aban, just like the Akan and Dinkra Sumba, ABAN, and then the word advantage at gmail.com. So Aban, ABAN, advantage at gmail.com. We must maintain a state of readiness. We can't never, a real warrior never lets his guards down and is never caught off guard.
Ashe.
Absolutely.
Something, mama.
So thank you for that. And I wanted to ask too, is there a the survival training program going on this summer? Do you have something scheduled?
We actually scheduled something for September with all of this COVID thing because, again, regardless of whether we believe it's real or not, other people is believing it's real or not. I haven't planned, for example, a concealed carry class for since March. You know what I'm saying? I haven't even looked at trying to set a date or anything because while I may or may not think that it's real, if you think it's real and I need you to come and take the class, that don't mean nothing, right? And so we originally set it for, I want to say, the second or the third weekend of September, even before this COVID thing hit. But when this COVID thing hit, it has thrown everything off. But we will be looking at that, and we'll be sure to keep you abreast of that so you can announce it. The other thing, and I apologize, Brother Julian, Sister Kenya, and Brother Casabez, as well as the sister with the Sankofa piece, if you have not done it already, please put together a piece on repatriation. I think that African people really need to take that into consideration because America is not the only horse or the only game in town.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's the topic. And I was just with a group of brothers from the Earth Center yesterday. And, we frequently travel back and forth from Africa. But we also have brothers who's from there, in our organization. So, we were just having a dialogue yesterday about really the fact that you don't own property here in the United States. First of all, the issues with the mortgage. But even if you pay off the mortgage, you can lose your property to taxes. So it's really difficult to own property here. If you're in Africa, you don't have to pay tax. You can buy your land and you own it outright, and nobody's going to take it from you. So that's one advantage of being over there.
I mean, we could go on and on and on.
We could go on. There's so many, but yeah, there's that definitely should be will be a topic of conversation in the upcoming weeks, because we need to be talking about that. We need to be planning our escape.
Absolutely, bro. Yeah.
And very quick, my apologies. And we must remember what Garvey said. Garvey said, Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. But even for those Africans that do not choose to repatriate, we need to make sure that we at home and that we can still get the resources of Africa back to those Africans around the world, even if they choose not to repatriate.
Absolutely, and get the resources from here to there, so that there can be
absolutely two-way street. That's right. That's right.
A cooperation and organization amongst us as a group, not just kind of one family here, one person here, doing things. It's not going to make the real change that we're looking for. We need to be organized as a group.
And I would add to that, we have to really remember that us and our repatriation has to be contingent upon what gifts do we have to give. Like we don't need to just show up and be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna get me a big fancy house, and I'm gonna get and start come in with our westernized mindset. First of all, we have to make sure we do the psychology on ourselves before we go trotting off, because we don't need to take a lot of the damage that we have here. We don't need to take that nowhere. We need to leave it here and be able to recognize that and do that. And here in the United States, it's a mindset of what can I get out of everything, and it is really challenging for people who are very tenderhearted, who just can't even understand what that means. But the good side of that personality is that in these moments, we're able to recognize, empaths are able to recognize that we need to have some gifts. Like for us, our thought plan is that if we have our agricultural gifts, that we can really assist in stabilizing and sustaining food systems there. So that just is something that I would toss out there.
Wow.
And if I may just very quick. So now you have an additional point of discussion when you do host it, because that's necessary. Ain't no sense of taking no Negro to Africa.
Absolutely. That's something Master Nava, founder of the Earth Center, used to say. He's from Burkina Faso, West Africa, and he used to warn us about going to Africa as agents of our colonizer. And not wanting people to go over there feeling like, oh, we need to save these poor Africans. Like that attitude, going over there with that attitude, you add into the problem. You're not going there to fix anything, because the only solution we get over there with is whatever solution the same people who educated us came up with and put in our minds. So we need to go over there also humbly to learn how to properly conduct ourselves on many levels. And
a brief
it's not going to be productive.
And a brief example of that is what transpired in Liberia. But Yabo, please.
Liberia, what's the name?
Yes, sir.
Oprah with her school more recently, and we could go on with that.
On and on, like Brother Sample said, we could go on and on. But Yabo,
we could go easily for another hour. But I do, before we wrap this up, I want to give Kenya and Julian the floor again to talk about what you guys have going on with the Black farmers in the Chicago area, and in general, Also, real quick, shout out to all the people worldwide who are seeing ways to help their fellow human beings in the trying circumstances that we're in. And even with all the different agendas, political agendas, conspiracies going on, vaccine agendas and whatever else may be at hand, we're seeing a lot of positive things too, with people coming together and trying to assist each other, people running programs to help people who are without food sources of food and other needed supplies after local stores are being looted, assistance for those people and things of that nature. So Kenya and Julian have a program that they're working on, and I'll just let you guys talk about that. You're muted.
All right. Hi. Okay. Thank you, Casabez and Baba Nubia. Where do I start? Okay. So about 12 years ago, Julian and I were newlyweds, and well, not 12 years ago, that was 22 years ago, actually. And we started really growing ourselves in that moment when we decided to have children and reinforce the union of community through our intimate relationships with one another. And so we decided that, hey, this is what we really wanted to start our foundation of community. And we ended up with 6 children. So we have 6 children, and they're all dear and have so many wonderful things that have fulfilled our life. But how do we keep all of these kids busy, fed, educated, a whole host of things? So that's where the urban farming piece really kind of came in, when we had the opportunity to go down to the historic community of Pembroke, Illinois, and start to learn. Like you say, it starts with the learning of a place and a culture. And we worked with a biodynamic farmer down there by the name of Terrence Miller, who taught us principles of biodynamic farming, which is a farming that really seeks to be harmonious and synced and actually a part of our ecosystem versus some outside member or agent that is destroying it, which is typically of what's happening. So we wanted to give our children, teach them a skill, get them fresh air, get them like outside of the city, and just a whole host of things. And so in that pursuit, we started a program. And, one day we were having a community garden, and that garden is still kind of here in the back of us. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see, let's see. It's kind of over in that gigantic field there. Can't see it too good, but we have right now on our space, we have pawpaw trees and elderberry and fig and about 50 tomatoes. And we kind of are living the ideal of what urban sustainability really should look like. If we all did this, we would not have any kind of problem with our food system. We would be completely prepared. We would be much mentally healthier. We would be physically healthier. We would be spiritually healthier. We would be all kinds of things, emotionally and intellectually healthier. So we turned ourselves into a group by the name of Soillutions, and we were an education, economic, and environmental program. And that was really amazing because we got to really teach in a lot of schools and develop our craft and really touch a lot of our young people's lives to encourage them to become reconnected again with nature. So we were called upon by an Inglewood community member, Anton Seals, who is the lead executive director or lead steward of GGE, Grow Greater Inglewood. And he asked what kind of opportunities or what what we had an opportunity to actually contribute something on a large scale with a city affiliated project in which we've been working on, land trust and all these things over the last 6 years. So they said, well, what kind of business are you going to pitch for the city? And Julie and I sorted through all kinds of things of mycology and aquaponics and vermiculture and you name it. We really, we even have studied solar panel installations as well as energy auditing. So we were trying to really find where was our landing space. So our landing space, and you got to get the tincture. Our landing space became DuSable. Out of all of that work with Anton, our landing space became DuSable City Ancestral Winery and Vineyards. We are urban farmers in the city of Chicago who specialize in the growing of elderberry. I can go on and on and on. And that elderberry is really a response to this COVID because it is one of the most potent antivirals on the planet. So we started really studying that, we have a beautiful specimen of a tree here. My children are all on the porch. And so I'm going to walk down here, but I think I can give you just a glimpse at this beautiful tree we have here in our front yard. Let's see. Let's see. Can you see it? Oh, there it is. So that is our elderberry tree, and it has these really beautiful flowers that are medicinal, and we've learned just an amazing wealth of knowledge about the properties. The leaves are insect repellents, and that's good for your skin. And then there's dyeing properties, and so it really just set the ball rolling. And now we have really finalized the product in which we took all of the things that we were growing to add to the health of our community. And we came up with a product of an elderberry tincture. And our tincture here is DuSable City Botanical Farms. And then we have a shout out to our community partner here on the back. You'll see Grow Greater Inglewood is right there. And the tincture is composed of CBD. Behind the CBD is that we were some of the only hemp growers in the city of Chicago, the only hemp people growing hemp in this field back here. And so we took the hemp. We found ourselves like in a quandary with the hemp because the price of it was down, and we weren't going to get what we thought we were going to get out of it. And fortunately, through our network, we took classes and we were able to develop this product of tinctures. And then we took our CBD, our hemp, and we created a CBD elderflower, and also we grew ashwagandha, which is they call it Indian ginseng. And it has both properties of American and Chinese ginseng, and it's basically an adaptogen. So we have a lot of fun with that when we have parties, and no one wants to hangover. So that's kind of our thing right there. And then we also came up with our second variety is a CBD moringa that we grew, and also elderflower. Now, moringa isn't germane to this area, but what we did was we grow it as much as we can, and then we harvest. We plant it heavy and harvest the leaves, and there we are. We have this product. So we've been doing all this work, and we have our product, and I'll share with you our website. And also, I would ask you to go to DuSable City Ancestral Winery and Vineyards Facebook page, and you can like our page, and that way you can have these kind of conversations with us all the time and ask us any kind of questions regarding the product and the work that we do. So going back to the point of, let me see, I've been talking so much here.
think you covered it all.
Well, no, let's see. Well, the protest. So, of course, I'm a mom of 6, and I was very, of course, my heart is kind of so tethered to this thing so deeply that sometimes I don't even watch TV, rarely. So this moment I was really struck. I just found myself almost in a transient state about this, and just really trying to figure out what is our piece as urban farmers. I saw so many amazing people, amazing, I can't say it enough, doing so many amazing things, but they were kind of satellite, and some people have this information and some people have that information. Well, how do we centralize this? So we were reached, brothers who from EAT, Equity and Transformation, and the gatekeepers reached out to us and said, hey, we're doing a 30-day protest. And we're like, oh, this is what we need to be doing. We need to be joining this protest in which we are asking, if we're going to have a meeting on the 12th, and you have it there on your screen. We're going to have a meeting on the 12th in which we kind of really figure out what is our capacity, what is our scale, and who are the participants in this. And that meeting will kind of convene all of the urban farmers so that we can really kind of nail this out. We have a larger working document that really is really amazing. Erica Allen is one of the participants in this. She is one of the co-CEOs with Urban Growers Collective. She does amazing work. I mean, I just can't say enough good things about Erica, but she's got a big job that she does, and anything that we can do to contribute to that and make her work easier is always a base. So Erica calls us and she says, oh yeah, well, reach out to her, and she says, yeah, sure, I'm interested in the protest. So what she says for the protest in support of really identifying Black cultural relevance, she's going to do a diasporian CSA where you can get cassava and yams and all of these different things in this protest. So you'll find out all of these details if you join us for our Zoom meeting. I have the link, and also if you want to shoot me an email, I'm completely open and available to really get this ball moving, to figure out how urban farmers can really make sure that the work that we're doing is really touching the lives of our community here locally in Chicago for at this point, and also internationally as well.
Wow, that's big. So, as we're seeing people coming together to basically figure out how we can get through this together, because it's time right now. Some of us have been looking, studying, learning, trying to understand, and trying to prepare for situations like this for many years or decades. And the times that we've been kind of warned about or warning about or, trying to prepare for, it looks like if they're not here right now, they're very close. So I want to just leave us on that note. I think we're going to wrap up the show unless anybody else has something they want to say. We're not technically on a time limit, but I am getting hungry. And but we really need to figure out how we're going to get through this together.
Well, you guys can start by supporting folks like me and Baba Nubian and Dusable City Ancestral Winery in our protests. Baba Nubian and his survival training. I know of this training for years. It's an amazing, necessary platform. I mean, that is a difficult topic, and so you really kind of If you can protect yourself and you can feed yourself, you're going to be all right.
All right.
That's right. That's right. And, and if I may, just real quick, I want to give the caveat that I don't think that we should look at this as this situation have brought this up, and now we're trying to deal with it. I think that if we properly and historically put the samples work within context, and so many other farmers work within context, as well as my work within context, we would say that this was the model that we wanted the village to be in the first place. That they knew the food or where it was coming from, what it was being grown with, and that it was grown with people that loved and cared for those that was, that they was providing it to. And so I think that this is maybe the opportunity to bring some people in that otherwise would not be there. But I don't want, and I would caution for us to say that us responding to this is us trying to get through this. What this is that people finally get to see us. You know what I'm saying? One of the things, there's a black toilet paper maker that I don't know if he's actually out of Chicago, but a lot of people here in Chicago carry his toilet paper. Where all of the other toilet paper shelves was empty. You know what I'm saying? Did that then force black people to, oh, you know what? I need to let that toilet paper that brother or whoever it is making it or selling it or whatever. And so I think that again, the samples work, y'all work, Baba Casabez and others work, is work that we've been trying to tell black people is good work, worthy work, and right work. And now, just because of this situation, and this is the danger of integration. Prior to integration, we was all that we ever had. And now we're back to that because we can't really depend on people. And so the question becomes, as we organize this piece, Sister Sample, Kenya, and I'm going to try to work with that and see what, if anything, I can do in my limited capacity to get those boxes that you was talking about earlier to the west side and then to some of these western suburbs, is that we got to try to get people to buy into this and then stay with this. You know what I'm saying? And make this a new part of their life every single day. Because this really, Baba, is where we should have been 10 years ago. And when all of this happened with the U.S. economy, we wouldn't even been faded.
Yeah, I mean, it's been needed, and we've known that it's been needed, but and I say there's enough blame to go around. I don't even want to get into that game, but it seems like it's just been easy enough to be comfortable with the status quo that people haven't really felt the urgency to prepare at the level where, like you're saying, long time ago we could have been already. But right now we're feeling the urgency, and we're seeing that we need to do something immediately, and so that I think hopefully it can be the fire to really ignite something that can grow bigger, but at the same time,
That's right.
Can be sustainable and serve us for the long term.
That's right. That's right. And so Baba, if I could, just one last shameless plug, if you will. We do a full line of firearms instruction, concealed carry for those in the state of Illinois. We do advanced handgun training, advanced or whatever handgun training. We also do carbine training. So if you own an AR-15, an AK-47, or any of the other carbines, we also do shotgun training. And in each of these firearms, we do advanced firearms training. So if you're looking for somebody that look like you and you won't be concerned about being the outsider at some of this type of training, and historically for the last 20 years, we've actually since 92, so that's 30 years. For the last 30 years, we've been going out training with the who's who in this industry that ain't African. Let me say that, unfortunately, that ain't African, but we got it now, and we have even really, I hate to use the word perfected, but we have figured out best way to teach this, particularly to African people. And so we got this. And so if you're looking for somebody to get that training, contact us. Again, we at Aban, ABAN, advantage, ADVANTAGE, at gmail.com.
Cool. Thanks again for that. And
Forward, Baba.
Sister Kenya, Baba Nubian had mentioned the boxes that we were talking about. You had mentioned before the show, but could you, because I don't think that's been on this recording since we've gone live, could you say a little bit about that?
Okay, let's see. Well, I'm going to, okay. What we're proposing is that we take this time to, change our communities. This is an opportunity for us. And we're asking that during a minimum of days, of 30 days, we boycott to dismantle economic institutions of racism while creating sustainable, proficient, prolific communities of color. Some of the things that we are envisioning for this plan is that with our partnerships so far, we have 2 really awesome partners. Well, 3. We have a partnership. Well, more than that. We have EAT, who is a partnership and their gatekeepers. They have committed to 50 participants or community members, and we have a goal of about 500 people to participate. We also are partnered with EAT, UGC, GGE, Culture Connection, Chicago Food Policy Action Council, and of course ourselves. So Urban Growers Collective is providing a CSA, which stands for Community Shared or Supported Agriculture. At Urban Growers Collective, you can order online. We're asking everybody to order online and even order extras to give a gift. And so I have a link, you click on the link, you go to the CSA, it's $30 a week. So for the total number of days of this protest to start off with, you only have to pay $120 to that CSA. And so that's an amazing way to save money and support local Black businesses. We also are partnering with Culture Connection, who will be providing all of our household goods. And we're looking to put together, and we have to really talk this out, but just to kind of share out of excitement, we look to do a protest kit, which will basically have 3 bottles of laundry detergent, 3 bottles of dish soap, 2 toothpaste, 1 bottle of body wash, 3 bottles of soap, and and hand soap, and then deodorant and a couple of other items. So we're trying to figure out what the budget of that is, so you can go online and be able to order those things right now. Actually, you can start supporting the protest today by going to Urban Growers Collective, click on the CSA, and you can also go to Culture Connection for household goods and purchase that way. And that kind of, we're recommending doing that early so that we won't have a bottleneck of people, really not really being able to be serviced in that way. So the CSA, you pull up, you'll get all of the produce that is grown that day. I got some of the most beautiful lettuce, lacinato kale, radishes, and collard greens that were so amazing and really kind of the inspiration behind the flyer. There's a couple of things during the meeting that we are going to talk, informal points of discussion, side questions and gaps, and action items. I have a ton of people to reach out to right now, but it seems like it's coming all together. And anything else you need out of me, Barbara?
No, I think we're good. So once again, that's the 12th, this Friday, June 12th. And that will be at what, 6 o'clock Central Time, right?
Yes, Central 6. I've been talking so much. 6 o'clock Central Time, for the meeting. And so
it's a Zoom meeting. And for those who can't read that on the screen, the email to get more information is kenya.vera.sample. KENYA.VERA sample@gmail.com.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Hey, Kazabeh, it's just two very quick things. One, I want to know if you noticed the way that Mama said collard greens. Did you catch that? Maybe
yeah,
when you play it on replay, Mama said collard greens. And so
we said it
Okay, for my soul.
need to get me some.
that's right. That's right. And then the second thing, a question for Mama, per the purchase of the produce, are y'all accepted or set up to contend with like EBT for those that may have that form of payment?
EBT
The
all
link,
day.
yeah. All right.
EBT all day. All
Okay.
day. Ring a
Okay.
ring, ring, ring.
Cool.
Okay.
Good. Because we need to let people know that they can come down there with their card in the same way everybody else put the big purple sign in the window. We accept EBT. We got to let them know. Yes, you can come and do that with us.
You
So
know what?
excellent. Thank you, sister.
I am taking a note on that. We will definitely ensure that. What we are asking is people make it easy. If they could go online, hit the link and order. Just ahead of time, because right now they have a few things in place because of the COVID. So
Absolutely.
so the pre-ordering is open for everyone to join the protest today, and make sure you are sending boxes all the way up and down your block and give it to your neighbors and give the gift of protest.
Okay.
Ashe.
All right, and appreciate that. Really appreciate that, sister. I'm gonna let's see, that time of day. I should be able to get on that meeting. And one thing I wanted to offer anyone in the Chicago area, that if you're looking for some place to grow, there is some land that we are pretty much gonna be taking that's owned by the city, but we're just gonna go ahead and start planting there. It's good land, good soil on that land, and it's a good amount of land that we just like, hey, anyone wants to come get down with the get downs, come get down. And if you want to know more about that, you can contact us via Meridian World News Facebook page, and you can just message us there. That's facebook.com/MW News 2020. And of course, make sure to also subscribe, like the page, and subscribe so you get notifications when we're doing something new. So yeah, we are very glad to have had you all and talk to you all, share with you all, and we're looking forward to again continuing to build our network of dedicated people who can assist with, not only just like you said, Baba Nubian, getting us through these times, but building something sustainable for our future generations. So
absolutely.
Peace and blessings to all of you and all those of you viewers who watched all hour and 33 minutes of this broadcast. Thanks for sticking with us, and y'all take care.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. Y'all stay strong.
All right.